наоборот, значит, вот наоборот, вот наоборот, нет, наоборот, значит, нет. Ох, видишь, просто, да. Наоборот, значит, вот нет.
Do you write code? Step 9 will speed up your coding process. Using artificial intelligence, Step 9 predicts your next move while keeping your code neat, smart, and safe. Step 9. Write less, code more.
In this game, all you have to do is answer 5 simple questions correctly to win. But what happens if you get these questions wrong? Hey, what's up guys, it's Sberbank, and recently I entered the WoWie Game Jam 3.0. This Game Jam is hosted by Jonas Tyroller, and during the thing that was announced was failure is progress, with an additional focus of let's mess with the concepts of winning and losing. Shout out to Jonas, I really like this theme, so Dino and I started to draft out a few ideas. Eventually, I thought it'd be cool to make a game with a cheeky narrator that you can annoy, kind of like the Stanley Parable or There Is No Game. Because I'd always dreamed of making a game like this, and why not experiment in a game jam? Dino then had the idea to make the game like a quiz show, where getting the wrong answers would take you down different paths and annoy the narrator. We both really liked this idea, so a few hours later I started working on the question system, and Dynam got to work starting on the script and possible story paths. We also thought that this idea would fit the theme pretty well, as the player can easily beat the game without failure, though the real fun would come from exploration and finding out all the little secrets. Also, winning would really just come to the player exploring the game. So I spent a few hours working on the system, and I wanted to make sure it was really easy to use and very versatile, as it'd be the backbone of our game. My plan was for there to be 2 kinds of scriptable objects, a question and an answer. Then I could input necessary data into these scriptable objects, and use a different question manager script to handle this data and make it work in the scene. I also wanted the option for each question and answer to have unique audio slots for narration. After some work, I had a super basic system in place. Here, I can click this button, and an audio clip would play for that answer. Then once the audio clip is finished playing, you can see this debug pop up. I then set up a basic question test with this system. As you can see, I had this question scriptable object with a slot for a question, and slots for all the answers to that question. Then, there are also these answer scriptable objects that hold an answer string, an ambiguous level, which we plan to use later, an audio clip that would play when the answer is selected, and then the next question to go to. Now if I hit play, select an answer, and wait for some audio to play, the scene will then reload and show the next question using the next question variable. Things weren't perfect, but this was a start. Next, I worked on question audio and fixing the scene transition. These were just some small but pretty nice changes. But by then, I was getting kind of tired of working on code, so I took a break to work on some art for the game. I made 4 very simple buttons with different colors, and after importing those, things were looking much better. But by now, Dynam had a decent chunk of the main questions done, so I figured I would get to importing these questions. These questions were super simple. We wanted to make sure that basically everyone knows what the answer is, and they are kind of just common sense things, using basic math, colors, shapes as a baseline. But this is just going to be the main, simple path with not much variation. After all, failure is progress. After a while of setting things up, a few questions were in, and as you can see that the answers were pretty obvious, but that's kind of the point. You shouldn't be getting these answers wrong, or should you? I then realized that some of the questions in the game only have 2 answers, so I worked on some functionality for that, and now you can select if a question only has 2 answers, and then the question will only display 2 answers in the game. By now, I was kind of lost on what to do, as Dynam is still working on the script and story flow of the game. So I just decided to create a simple start screen, and that was that. After that, Dynam was almost done with the script and questions, so I just made some more changes to the game in general, like changing the font, working on the question system to be more versatile, and giving it more customizability with things like win stakes and answer overrides. I also worked on a questions right system that would count the number of questions the player got right, and once the player makes it to the end of the survey, the game will showcase how many questions the player got right. By this point, we were really starting to run out of time, and this was the last full day of work for both of us. My job was mostly done, and I was really just waiting on Dynam to finish up the narration and questions, which was something we both really underestimated on how much time it would take to complete. So, in the meantime, I tried to polish some things, like giving the button a click effect, finding some nice relaxing background music, and adding a hint of post-processing. Finally, Dynam started importing the narration, and we started adding these audio clips to the right questions and answers, and setting up the correct flow of questions, which was quite confusing to me as I was still kind of unfamiliar with all the paths and routes. By now, it was 9 p.m. for me, and the jam ended at 9 a.m. tomorrow, and we were nowhere close to done. So Dynam and I spent the next 3 hours straight just grinding through setting up these questions and endings. This was actually a lot of work because there were over 80 different audio clips and about 5 unique endings in the game. Also, I don't want to spoil the mysteries of the game too much, but the game has an underlying system called angriness. Every time you select the wrong answer, this angriness will increase. And if the narrator is angry, he can give you different and unique responses to your answers, which is pretty neat in my opinion. And sometimes the narrator can even take you down special paths in the game. So you can see that managing all this was quite a task. It also didn't help that there were many bugs in the game's code, and I have to admit, my code towards the end of the game jam started to get extremely messy. By the time I went to bed, the game still wasn't finished, so I woke up bright and early at 6:30 and tried my best to get some more work done. I added a few audio effects, worked on the endings, and attempted my best to understand how the game functions under the hood so I could work on it a bit more. Soon, Dynam also got up, and we worked our hearts out for those next 2 hours, attempting to get everything set up correctly and getting rid of the many bugs that popped up along the way. After that grind was over, the game was finally finished, and we started to build about 15 minutes before the deadline. But of course, WebGL was doing its thing and refusing to let me build, which was super stressful. Dynam, on the other hand, had a really slow PC, and the build took something like half an hour to complete, so unfortunately we missed the deadline, but thankfully things weren't over, as Jonas let us submit a bit late because of technical issues. It felt great to be finally done with this project after so much grind, though unfortunately we soon realized that the game was rattled with bugs, because we basically had no time to playtest, which was a shame, but at least the game was still somewhat playable and enjoyable, and people actually seemed to really like it, even though that 2 of the game's paths were inaccessible and there were many glitches along the way. Later that night, Dynam and I got back to work on the game, and we fixed a bunch of the issues with the game, which was nice, because previously the main point of criticism was the bugs. Also, finally now, those 2 paths that I mentioned were now accessible, which created a bit more content for the game. Thanks Jonas for allowing us to fix bugs, so hopefully if you play it, there shouldn't be too many issues. I also threw together this really basic itch.io page along with some promotional art, and with that said, the game was finally finished. And oh boy, this is quite a ride, especially those last 12 hours. Overall, this was a great experience. I've always wanted to make a game where you can annoy a narrator, and this game jam was the perfect opportunity. And looking back, it just makes me so happy that so many people seem to have thoroughly enjoyed this simple little game. Thanks again to Jonas for hosting, and Dynam for being my super awesome game jam partner. By the time you see this, he should have his own devlog.
Hi, this is Mark Brown with Game Maker's Toolkit, a series on video game design. Games with user-generated content can be great stepping stones for wannabe designers. Games like Little Big Planet,
Опа, что здесь? Позорно, блин, такой у меня здесь. Я так уже устал от этого, честно говоря. Даже не знаю, что это.
Шалом. Меня зовут Хадас. Я учитель первого уровня в школе иврита имени Розена.
Okay, so I've been investigating something for a long time, probably deeper than I've gone on any other video for a while at least. Something I never thought I would be investigating, but I am. I'm investigating McDonald's ice cream machines. Who wants to go get ice cream? Can I get an ice cream cone?
We don't have ice cream right now.
Not today.
Not today.
Maybe tomorrow or something.
Or next week. I don't know.
Does that happen a lot, like that the machine's down?
Yeah, this one, yeah.
Okay. For a few years now, people have taken notice that the ice cream machines at McDonald's always seem to be down.
The ice cream machine part is not working.
The broken ice cream machines at McDonald's have been the fodder for a lot of weird internet culture. One guy even made an interactive map that shows every single McDonald's that has a broken ice cream machine at this current moment.
So I reverse engineered the Android app. I think it was like a meme, but nobody actually knew if this meme was correct or not. But they didn't know that was like an actual thing that all the franchises are studying.
But a couple months ago, I got an email from a guy who said that he had a deeper story. He said that there are important questions that no one is asking, and he promised me answers to those questions and data and evidence to back it up. He even said that there's potentially something nefarious going on here. I was like, okay, cool, another conspiracy theory about these McDonald's ice cream makers. So I asked my producer Jack to get on the phone with this guy and hear him out. A week later, Jack called me.
There's actually something going on here. I've been going through everything and you really need to see this.
Okay. I was still highly skeptical that this could be anything worth a video or an investigation, but I decided to dive in anyway and see this evidence for myself. I started looking at data, at internal McDonald's emails, at these mind-numbing 100-page instruction manuals for ice cream makers. I started talking to McDonald's franchise owners and managers and guests. It turns out there is something really weird going on here. Something that hasn't been reported on before. And something that shows that McDonald's broken ice cream machines actually reveal a bigger story about how big businesses protect one another, even if that means hurting their customers. I never thought I'd be going down a deep investigation into ice cream makers, but I am, and I did, and I want to share with you what I learned.
McDonald's is getting on my fucking nerves.
And the machine is always down.
The ice cream machine is broken.
And if you try to pull it up, this what happens.
Sorry, the ice cream machine is broken. The broken McDonald's ice cream machine epidemic has been so widespread for so long that it's a meme.
You know what they're gonna say. You already know. The ice cream machine is broken.
Ice cream machine is broken. Kind of sounds like there's a story behind that one, doesn't it?
Это рынок кормы. Одно из самых шумных и веселых и сумасшедших мест в Тель-Авиве. Здесь обычно работают десятки кафе, которые готовят миллион вкусностей. Люди пьют вино и жарят рыбу на мангале, и танцуют, и веселятся, и толпа вокруг, и жизнь бьет ключом. Но потом торговля заканчивается. И когда торговля
In this very moment, if you look at McBroken, around 13% of ice cream makers in the United States are not working. That's any red dot on this map. What a brilliant little tool Rashik made. I mean, this is just so good. So Jack, why are the ice cream machines always broken?
So once the internet started to notice this, the Wall Street Journal and Business Insider and a bunch of other outlets started to report on it. And the conclusion that they came to was that these machines aren't actually broken. They're just going through a really long and really complicated cleaning cycle that lasts 4 hours at a time. And when that happens, the employees tell you it's broken because it's just easier. But don't take my word for it.
So when you go there and they tell you it's broken, there's a high chance it's not broken, it's just shut up for maintenance.
Okay, so human error and this long cleaning cycle, that was the conclusion that like everyone came to, and everyone seemed to be satisfied with that. I mean, I would be satisfied with that. It's a pretty tight conclusion. But hold on a second. You guys have Frosties?
Yeah.
I was just at McDonald's and the ice cream machine was broken, and it seems like it always is. Is the ice cream machine broken here very often?
No, yeah, that's a McDonald's problem. We wash our machines every single time.
Oh, that's cool. Is it easy to do that, or is it pretty complicated?
No, it's actually really easy to clean it. They're just lazy. It's the honest truth. It's the honest truth.
So, Wendy's doesn't have this problem. And what's crazy is that they use the same brand of machine as McDonald's does, and yet they don't have a McBroken. It's not an internet meme, nor is it for...
Ну смотри, ты можешь продолжать у меня говорить уже, да. Отвлекайся на все, да. Ну вот это мне, да наоборот, да вот это мне. Ой, да не надо. Нет, сейчас у меня нету денег, ты не понимаешь, что сейчас я вообще нищетовый человек. Да, ты, да, он, да, понял меня. И много чего можно сказать с этим, да, понарошку как бы, типа того. Похож на девчонку, да. Ну, девчонка вот в детском саду, у нее хобби какое-то, вот она там что-нибудь делает. И от хобби до бизнеса, если так уж говорить, большое расстояние есть, понимаешь это, да? Да. Или да, ну, я понял, да. Ну, уже просто так, да. То есть оно все, да, без денег ты можешь что угодно делать, понимаешь? Что угодно мнить о себе, что угодно и так далее. Да. В том-то и дело, понимаете, да. Ну вот я про это тебе и говорю, что сейчас как бы сиди и играй все, но это все равно, это если денег нет, ну хорошо, играй, ты тут что-то наиграешь. Но если денег нету у тебя, ну, у тебя, ну вот это имеете, на что время это бюджета, что ли. Если денег нету, ты даже ответственности за это не чувствуешь, что ты не играешь нормально, там, понимаешь, да? Ты даже не понимаешь, за что, как бы, то есть дети, как бы, как этот рынок работает, скажем так, ты просто не в теме, понимаешь, он тебя, да? Как и что, и где, и почем, и так далее, да. Да и просто, то есть время идет зря, тебе надо начать уже деньги получать, реализовываться, понимаешь? Да, да. Ну тогда надо пока наемно как-то делать это, да. Через, ну, что значит, через работодателей, у них свои интересы у работодателей, ну ничего страшного, они как-то, да, что теперь, да. Понимаешь, здесь есть один момент, что ты, да. Нет, это уже не считаю, ну и что, будешь по 8 часов будешь заниматься черт знает чем, будешь в Макдональдс там, что, Яндекс бегать или что будешь делать-то? Бумажки заполнять. Ну это уже, да, вот это понятно. Понимаешь, какая ситуация, что там можно, если ты пианист, концертмейстер, там можно как-то это самое. Да, понимаешь. Ну что теперь, это нормально, то есть, да. Это нормально, чем-то, ну ты и так не думаешь, ну он так не думает. Ну ненормально, значит, ну ладно. Ну не наиграл, значит, еще, да, не наиграл. Ну надо, и что ты хочешь, чтобы я на шее сидел бесплатным, как бы, маразматиком каким-то, да. А я мужик или не мужик? А если я начну деньги получать, я уже могу и жениться, и, да, понимаешь. Все уже, и пузень, как говорится, и все нормально, как говорится. Да. Ну на перекладных, у кого свое понятие было там, где понял, да. Ну нет, ну типа, ну я про себя говорил, про это, да, имеется, вот это имел в виду. Ну ты такой простой, ну иди вот сейчас заново делай что-нибудь с нуля. Не имею, как сказать, с вами, да. Ну, видимо так, к сожалению, в мире, видимо, на какие-то, ну хорошо, а вот мне имеет в виду, понимаешь, да, Угу. То, что хочу я, чтобы я делал. То, что я считаю правильным. Можно и так. Постепенно развивал сам себя. Ты как думаешь? Считаешь, что да? Ну, это глупо, надо и потакать все время публике только. Ну тогда что, понимаешь, да? Откуда публика, хорошо, откуда публика свои интересы? Ну хорошо, понял я. А в чем же штука тогда? Ты тогда кто такой? Ты же бот тогда просто, да? Ты что свою, ну да, ну, за что любишь, ну не важно, как поехал, уехал, все.
Has a problem with the broken ice cream maker. You don't have that issue. If you want a real answer on this, you need to talk to the people who suffer the most when these machines broken, which actually isn't McDonald's corporate. It's the people who own these individual restaurants or franchises. These are the people who pay the price in lost revenue when the machine is broken. So I talked to them. I talked to managers who actually deal with broken machines. And I also went deep in this 111-page owner's manual, which is not a read I recommend, but I will summarize what it says. What I've found is as mind-boggling as it is infuriating. To understand this, you have to understand how these ice cream machines work and why they break. So I ask you to bear with me as we learn how an ice cream machine at McDonald's works and why they always break. Once you understand that, you will understand who is getting rich every time one of these things breaks and why they have an incentive to keep them broken.
And I was like, okay, I'm gonna guess it's gonna be around like 5%. And it came back to like 13%, which is insane.
One question that needs to be asked is, should you be building ice cream machines if after 17 years you still can't get the software right?
No, yeah, that's a McDonald's problem.
Okay, really quick, I just want to talk about life insurance. Something we don't really want to talk about very often, but we should probably talk about it. In fact, for the past year and a half, I've been trying to get life insurance, and I haven't been getting it because I've been like, how do I even get life insurance, and what even is life insurance, and all of that. The sponsor of today's video answers that question. Policy Genius is a marketplace where you can go and shop around and save on life insurance. Did you know that the younger you are, the cheaper life insurance is? Most of you are young, and therefore, most of you could lock in a really good life insurance rate for the next 20, 30 years. These are just smart things to have to plan for the future. Policy Genius isn't an insurance company, they're just a marketplace. They're just a place where you can go and choose from a bunch of different plans, and then they handle all the paperwork, which like someone like me who hates paperwork, that is a huge benefit. I'm going through this process right now. Like, I'm not kidding. I'm not just saying this like for a sponsorship. I'm literally going through this process right now because of Policy Genius, and I'm getting life insurance because I think I need to be smart, like a smart adult, and do this. And I'm young, so my rate is going to be actually quite affordable. And one of my favorite parts about this whole thing is that Policy Genius doesn't sell my data and information to other companies, which is actually a really rare thing nowadays. So thank you, Policy Genius, for that. So go to policygenius.com/JohnnyHarris, shop the marketplace, and start.
Зачем тебе данная информация? Зачем она тебе? Смотри, зачем ты так за свои, за что ты, что размер твоих этих носков там или что? Это, ой, ну это у тебя вообще просто забыть. Я просто чего? Какие твои данные информации? Что тебе это самое? Да пусть помнят тебя, какая нафиг разница? Что за бред? Данные мои какие-то, ну что они там могут это? Они, то есть как бы ты думаешь, что они выдадут кому-то там, да. Я понять этого только не могу, понимаешь, да? То есть что, да. Ну что тебе будут рекламные ролики слать? Или что, ты это понимаешь в виду? Стучаться начнут тебе какие-нибудь, знаете, позорной, да. Ну, понял, да, понял. Ну нет, ну наоборот, ну нет. Не знаю, я не понимаю, я не в курсе. Чего так этого бояться? Чё вообще штука? Каких ты там ходишь в штанах там или что там, да? Ну, не, ну, ну нет, ну да. Ну нет, и это же мужской разговор, я имею в виду, да. Ну, нет, это тут вообще ни при чем. Даже так, это за что бояться? Это просто, ну так, да, я понимаю. Да. Я просто не в теме, там действительно с деньгами. Это не может быть не связано с деньгами как каким-то образом. Иначе зачем еще про это говорить? То есть, что у тебя будут disturbance, типа того, да? Ну и твой адрес, например, кому-то начнут рассказывать, кого ты не хочешь, смс-ки слать. Типа того, наверное, вот это имеется в виду, наверное, нет. Тоже не очень понятно. Не знаю. Короче, я не в курсе, я не в теме. Да. А чего бояться-то? Ты умрешь, и много данных от тебя останется. Что тут плохого? Ну, например, как бы. Не надо это же лишнего.
Or more per year by using Policy Genius to compare life insurance policies. You could save 50% or more on life insurance by comparing quotes with Policy Genius. I love when old legacy industries get updated to new modern companies that are more seamless and smarter and on the internet. That's what Policy Genius is. So go check it out. Get life insurance. What I'm doing right now. Let's get back to McDonald's ice cream makers.
If somebody said I have a product that 10% or 12% of the time is not functioning, from an engine standard standpoint, what does it look like?
That's not good at all. Being down for 10% all the time, that's like, no, you can't do that.
So let's look at the machine in question here. It's this guy, the C602. It's made by a company called Taylor. This machine is made specifically for McDonald's. Taylor is like an OG partner of McDonald's. They've been doing business together since the very beginning of McDonald's. They're both based like a few miles away from each other in Illinois. They are old business partners going back decades. But like I said, Taylor makes ice cream machines for a bunch of other fast food restaurants like Wendy and Chick-fil-A, and those machines aren't broken all the time. So it's something very specific to McDonald's and Taylor that explains the ice cream machine issue. If you want to start a McDonald's franchise, you sign an agreement with McDonald's corporate that says, I'm going to open a restaurant and I'll make sure that everything is standardized. It's a part of this agreement that says you have to use this kind of French fry and you have to use one of 2 different companies for your fryer and your grill or whatever. When this new ice cream machine came out in 2003, McDonald's had it in their agreement with all their franchises, which is like 16,000 in the United States, that they had to use this machine. No other machine. They could not use any other machine on the planet. They had to use the C602 made by McDonald's and Taylor. It was in their agreement. Usually franchisees can pick between multiple different companies for the gear in their store.
То есть смотри,
Not in this case.
ну нечестный сговор, да, то есть я это произвожу, ты это как бы мы с тобой, да. Да. СИН там это тоже, это, видимо, так имеется в виду. Какая выгода у тебя от этого, понимаешь? Ну, я понимаю, да. Так, естественно, сидеть на месте и получать деньги за вчерашний и позавчерашний день, это как бы, это просто не по-мужски, понимают? Это вопрос только в том, что ты навалишься в деньгах только, ну как бы, разве нет? Да, я понимаю. Пассивный доход или как это называется. И кто-то активен, и кто-то будет новые машины выпускать, какие-то там, что-то новое делать, понятно. Ну, тебя будут, естественно, вгонять, а ты будешь что делать? Подсоков бы, еще подсов туда с дубинками, чтобы они там, как по-русски, 90-е у нас это дело. Ну, или там 30-е в Москве, да. Ну, ты понимаешь, вот, просто, да. То есть, и нормально есть чем заняться, как бы, да. И жить интересно, говорит, ага. Вот это и называется вот это, вот, да, то есть, я так не считаю, понимаешь? Как бы, так неинтересно. Ну да, ну наоборот, да. Тебе так нравится, да? Ну и черт тебе, как говорится, да, счастье себе. Вот видишь, это как бы штука такая, что, ну ты поймешь, он тебя понял, да. Вот ты уже не будешь собой заниматься, будешь заниматься конкурентами всякие там, какие-то интересные вещи, да, делать. Да, и тем более уже бизнесом ты не будешь заниматься, тебе уже плевать на все эти аппараты, тебе надо подпортить, подпилить что-нибудь там. Ну просто так уже, это не я уже говорил. Да. Ну да, типа того, он про это говорит, я что ли, я-то здесь при чем? Я вообще тебя понял. Тебе так думаю. Да. Ну, видимо, слабость это мужская. То есть это не просто слабость, а ты отказываешься от себя. Отказываешься в себе. Отказываешься себе в мужестве, типа того. Да. И за время свое занимаешь чем-то не тем, чем бы ты мог. Да, не вот, да. Вот что здесь так много денег, что ли, да, понимаю.
Use the C602. So let's dive into this machine.
Ну, это как бы все равно так вот, понимаешь, да? То есть ну, все равно тебя жизнь так или иначе, да. Будешь просто по кругам, ну, понял, ну, наоборот, ну, я понял, да. То есть нормально? Нет, темные пути я к тому, что бизнес как бы не бывает. Это так все понятно, то есть это не выгодно для тебя. Оно выгодно, когда ты тебе уже сам не интересен. Да, и ты, когда тебе уже никакого бизнеса, ну, нет. Ну, для себя, ты тебе сам не интересен, да, тебе сам не. Почему она выгодна, не выгодна? Ну, у всех свое понятие выгоды, понимаешь? Да, то есть смотри, вот у тебя выгоды, чтобы ты мог 5 лет портить аппараты и за них, например, брать это самое. И это наказуемо, понимаешь, помимо всего. Я тебе, да, понимаю, там, да. Ну я тебе говорю, братковский бизнес, это на грани закона, да. По идее, это не на грани закона, это просто как бы воровство. Ты воруешь деньги у клиентов, у заказчиков, там, и так далее, да. И так далее, и так далее, и так далее, да. Ну да, получилось. Вместо того, чтобы что, то есть ты на это тратишь деньги, да. Долгий разговор просто. Просто, понимаешь, ширли-мырли, если, да, ну, я понял. Даже ты людям рассказать это не сможешь, потом, да. Ну, наоборот, ну, я понял, да. Ну, нет, наоборот, да. Ну, вот на этом момент, да. Ну, да. Ну, да. Ну, типа того. Ну, да. Потому что я не знаю. Не знаю. В чем-то я уникальный. В чем суть условия, да, понимаю, да. Ну, наверное. Да, надо будет развиваться, расти, как бы, да. Понимаешь? То есть, как бы, да. Да, вот оно придит, одно другому придит. Да, понятно. То есть, ну это женское уже, ну ладно, это не важно. Нет, не женское. Беларусь. Тебе самому что надо? Ты ради чего этим занимаешься? Ради денег только, вот он тебя понял. То есть, ну вот я говорю, баба торговка, то есть преступник. Деньги это, ну так уж. Это просто даже не надо определять, понимаешь? То есть, если тебе, вот это значит сразу же преступник. То есть, понимаешь? Да, понимаешь. Если у тебя какие-то амбиции, то это уже, ну, как-то чуть поменьше. Ну, в смысле, ну, ты поймешь меня, что-то реализовано, да. А, так у тебя не только бабка, наверное. Ну, нет, понял, да. Вот нет, наоборот, да. А, что меня так, да. А, ну да. А, нет, как бы, я тебе, это... Ну, нет, я понял просто. Что ты всем, да, на себе так говорит, потому что, да, нет, наверное. Я не знаю, я как бы ты про себя говори только все, да, не надо, я-то что, да, ты надо мной издеваешься или что, я тебя поняла уже. На меня тоже распространяется, но у меня бизнеса нету, и даже зарплаты нет у меня никакой, что ты лезешь ко мне, блин, да, я понял. Ой, это так хорошо, давай сейчас все будут, да, идиот, что ли, да. Я тебе просто, да, я понял.
Including the ice cream mixture to like 151 degrees Fahrenheit. They leave it at that temperature for a while it kills off all the bacteria, and then it comes back down to a freezing temperature where it turns into ice cream. That process takes about 4 hours, and this is the thing that you hear about all the time as the explanation for why the machine is always down. But here's the... So what they do once per day is... Ice cream is dairy, and dairy needs to be kept at a certain temperature to stay safe. The machine itself has all these pipes that have dairy going through it all the time. So what they do once per day is they heat up the whole machine, including the ice cream mixture, to like 151 degrees Fahrenheit. They leave it at that temperature for a while it kills off all the bacteria, and then it comes back down to a freezing temperature where it turns into ice cream. That process takes about 4 hours, and this is the thing that you hear about all the time as the explanation for why the machine is always down. But here's the nuance here that really illuminates the story. Usually the employees do this overnight while the store is closed. Someone in the night shift gets the cleaning cycle going, and then they lock up for the night. The next morning, new employees who are opening the store for the morning show up and they look at the ice cream machine. And on the screen, they usually see one of two things. Heat cycle was successful, the ice cream machine is ready to use, or heat cycle failed. They don't know exactly why the heat cycle failed overnight. They're looking at this interface that looks like it's from like 1983, and all they see is something like heat mode failure or some other obscure code that doesn't really tell you what happened. The machine is completely locked out until you successfully run one of these heat cycles. You have to run the heat cycle. Even if the heat cycle missed one of these benchmarks by like 1 degree, it's still just going to tell you the thing failed. It doesn't tell you why or by how much. So the employee tells their manager, the manager has no idea why the heat cycle failed, and so they just tell their employees to run it again. Luckily it's the morning, so people aren't getting ice cream yet, but let's run the heat cycle again. So the employee runs the heat cycle again, and it fails again, probably for the same reason it failed in the first place, which nobody knows at this point. P.S. As a C602 ice cream machine insider, the reason why it failed probably is because the hopper's a little bit too full of the ice cream mix, and it takes a while for it to heat up and cool down that mass of matter, so just fill it a little bit less next time. That's one of many reasons why it might fail. Anyway, nobody knows this because they're just sitting there trying to serve customers. I worked in fast food in high school. It's a chaotic world. You're just trying to make people happy. Meanwhile, the person's trying to like run the heat cycle. It fails again. So the heat cycle fails again. Manager's pissed. You have angry people asking for ice cream, and everyone's just saying like, yeah, the ice cream machine's down. Sorry, we can't do anything about it. So finally, the manager calls the franchise owner, the owner of the business, and says, what do we do? And the franchise owner says, we need to get ice cream sales going. This is not okay. We're losing money. Just call the guy. Just call the guy. That's verbatim what one of the franchise owners told me. He said, when things are crazy, I just tell them, just call the guy. Now we're getting to the heart of things. The guy, in this case, means one guy, or one, which is an authorized service technician from Taylor, the company who makes the machine. Remember this?
Я сделал разговор, но...
You say replace the ice cream machine.
You're from Taylor?
Yes.
Okay, because I've never seen the beginning from that final.
Oh, okay, yeah, we switch things out.
Okay, you're still Taylor.
Yes, ma'am. Turns out that Taylor is the only company that is authorized to repair and maintain these machines. It's in their contract. If you call anyone else but Taylor, first off, they wouldn't know how to use it. It's such a strange, esoteric machine. But also, you would void your contract, your warranty. So you call the service contract. If you call anyone else but Taylor, first off, they wouldn't know how to use it because it's such a strange, esoteric machine. But also, you would void your contract, your warranty. So you call the service technician, he or she comes to fix the machine. We got our hands on some actual invoices that show how much these Taylor repair people cost. It's different in every market and for every scenario, but somewhere to the tune of $144 for the first 30 minutes, and then up to hundreds of dollars for each additional 15 minutes thereafter. So the desperate franchise owner, the one who runs the business, has to decide, do I deal with angry customers who are yelling at me because they don't have ice cream, or do I just call the guy and get them to come repair this at any cost, it doesn't matter. So these franchise owners end up paying thousands and thousands of dollars, not because their employees are incompetent or they're bad at training, but because this machine locks them out and they have no idea why. They're looking at a screen that looks like this, and all roads point to call the service technician. I watched a bunch of advertisements for Taylor Company, people who make this ice cream machine and do all the maintenance on it. They hardly talk about their product. Their advertisements are more about how great their repairs team is.
Innovators don't build machines. They solve problems. This is an expert technician. There are 6,500 Taylor technicians worldwide ready to help you. The Taylor Company.
A few years ago, Taylor was in talks to be acquired by another company called Middleby. They put together a pitch deck of all their financial to sort of say, like, look at how good our business is. And on that pitch deck, they stated that 25% of their revenue comes from this repair and parts service of their business. Yes, they make ice cream machines, but a quarter of their business comes from just maintenance and repairs. This sort of reoccurring revenue you can rely on month after month, is like gold for investors. People love this because this is like, you can project how much money you're going to get every month if you can rely on a certain channel of revenue in your business. Taylor can rely on services and repairs from McDonald's ice cream machines. Remember, up until just a couple of years ago, for years and years, McDonald's franchises were only allowed to use Taylor machines. They had no options. They couldn't be like, wow, this machine sucks, I'm going to go somewhere else. So they had to use the machine, regardless. And they had to use this specific machine that breaks all of the time.
Our parts and service network is what makes Taylor the company of choice for the food service industry.
No matter what time of the fucking day, the ice cream machine is broke.
Someone just making my baby cry.
We got our hands on the software for some of these machines to see how Taylor has tried to improve the software component. You would imagine that with a machine that is notoriously broken all the time, they would update their software to give more useful feedback to the user. Like, hey, your cleaning cycle failed last night, only by 1 degree, and that's probably because your hopper was too full. Try to fill it a little bit less next time. Alas, no. Since 2003, when this thing came out, there have been quite a few software updates. But instead of improving usability of the software has actually introduced just new sets of cryptic error codes that don't help anyone solve any problems. I've spent hours in this instruction manual going through all of the error codes and what they mean. I feel like maybe, just maybe, after reading this multiple times and like being in the weeds, I could operate one of these machines and maybe understand what's going on when things fail. But it is clear to me that this machine is not set up for the user to have success in diagnosing and fixing a problem. One person I was talking to was like, they just opened a store and it was a brand new store, brand new machine, and they're like, yeah, in the first few months we called the guy like 4 or 5 times. I am blown away that a product like this, with software this cryptic and horrible, can exist in 2021. The menus are horribly complicated, the error codes are not helpful, the buttons don't have words on them, instead they're just like a bunch of symbols. Like it's like, press the flavor button, press the ice cream button to get to here, like to access this menu, press these 2 buttons at the same time. It's like, how could you ever expect somebody, especially like an entry-level employee who's been on the job for like a few days, to understand any of this? It is a product that is set up to fail and that has no incentive to improve. Because what this means for Taylor is simply more services and repairs for their pocket. 25% of their entire business is based on this. And then there's the secret menu.
Our company specializes in tracing solutions for the CNC and industries.
In addition to the instruction manual that's given to users, I also got a hold of the service manual that is given to the Taylor service people. Like, this is like the insider manual that gives you the whole picture of it.
Не уедешь туда и все.
In this manual, you learn about a separate menu for the service
Ну ставишь, не знаю, родителям, отцу, матери, как бы, да. Ну нет, зачем? Отношения, разговор, да, все, да. И, ну фиг его знает, посмотрим. Ну тогда, ну просто здесь вещи, чтобы не собирать долго, да. Ну посмотрим. Может, или так тоже. Машину там заказал, скидал, да и все. Ну это, ну деньги, там тоже договориться надо. Ну это все решаемо, понимаешь, это все не сразу. Не важно. Сразу надо работу найти, источник, не понимаешь? Народ, ну хорошо, а ты что имеешь в виду? Надо найти источник дохода, за него, да, и все, больше ничего. Все, да. Он тебя понял, просто после так говорил, да. Нет, наоборот, что ли, он тебя понял. Да. Все, собрал вещи и уехал сразу в Глазов. Все, например. Да. Надо договориться, то есть, чтобы стопудово ты пришел, то есть, и работу, ну, насколько, ну, не получается, что невозможно, но насколько возможно. Ну, да, или как, ну, да, или как, ну, короче, понятно, да, чтобы ты уехал и работал уже сразу, все. Все, точка, да. Да. И, ну, понимаешь, да, нормально все как раз, да, я понял. Ну, вот нет, да. Ну, да. Ну, нет, ну, о себе так говорит, тоже, да. Он тоже хочет уехать, не, он о себе так думает тоже. Ну, вот это есть, ну, нет, ну, да. Да. Нет, конфетка будет, нет, он о себя так думает. Думать о себе надо, о себе. Ну, только как бы, ну, хорошо, думай сам, думай для всех.
The machine is not meant to cope, and yet, according to this new user, the person who owns the machine, the franchise owner, it's only accessible to the service techs who have very specific code for it. The existence of this service menu is found nowhere in the user manual, the thing given to the person who owns the machine. And yet, according to this manual, this menu contains, quote, critical operating parameters for the machine. So wait, if this machine is breaking all of the time, and you have a franchise owner who's trying to keep their customers happy, and there's a menu where there are, quote, critical operating parameters that the owner doesn't have access to, and yet, according to this manual, this menu contains, quote, critical operating parameters for the machine. So wait, if this machine is breaking all of the time, and you have a franchise owner who's trying to keep their customers happy, and there's a menu where there are, quote, critical operating parameters that the owner doesn't have access to, just call the guy. Just call the guy. The machine is not meant to give the user a clear picture on why it's breaking. A few weeks ago, a Taylor service technician realized that he was required to install this new software update on all McDonald's machines. He noticed that the update had a bunch of weird new error codes that made the machine worse and less functional. So he posted a video about it, asking for help from other service technicians. Shortly after he posted the video disappeared. When asked what happened, he responded with, quote, "The system defeated me." He was clearly told to take the video down. Somebody doesn't want this sort of thing on the internet. Now listen, this isn't some conspiracy. There's all sorts of weird conspiracies around the ice cream machines. This isn't one of those. This is actually very rational human and business behavior. When one has a monopoly over ice cream makers, and they've created a particularly shitty product that breaks all the time and gives users no clear feedback as to why it's broken, this company has no incentive to improve. In an open market, the incentive to make your product better comes from competition.
Just call the guy. Bunch of nerds. Idiot. Head up. disappointed for me. Yeah. Are you disappointed? Да, понимаешь. Я не хочу отдохнуть, я хочу научиться работать, ну, как бы не уставая, скажем так. Понимаешь? Ну, как бы, а как? Ну, я понял, да. Как-то возможно, есть такие, как бы, уровни, да, можно развиваться еще, да. Ну, ничего, устал, отдохни, какой-то отдых, значит, поспал. Ну, и да, днем пришлось, не поспал, так, вроде. Да. Много есть рисков там, скажем, да, неправда. Это тоже так, да. Ну тоже, ну научился, но не лезь тогда в риски неоправданные. Оправданные бери. Никогда не рискуй ничем тогда, да. Это есть никогда нового шага не делай. Ну есть такое понятие обман зрения, потому что даже если бы ты круто видел, то все равно там, да, сделал там аккуратно, наступил, да. Да, понял, да. Ладно, не важно. Наоборот.
Basically organizations will be driven out of business if you don't make a good product. In this case, that's not the dynamic. And in fact, having a bad product
ну что, ну оно как бы так, например, вот удачно, ну да. Ну нет, понял. Ну вот это и есть оно самое. Ты смеешься надо мной, что ли? Ты что меня, да, вот я понял, ну вот это и есть оно. Чтобы стать инвалидом, ты хочешь, чтобы я вообще ушел в никуда, в небытие, что ли? Чтобы я не был человеком, что ли, что ты хочешь? Чтобы я вообще, ну, по нулям был, если я работал. Ну да.
It means more money in services and repairs for this business. And the reason why McDonald's corporate is okay with that is because the cost isn't borne by them. It's borne by local franchise owners who have to pay for services and repairs. Taylor has the capacity to make and improve ice cream makers. They do that all the time at Wendy's and Chick-fil-A and In-N-Out. And yet the machine made for their OG exclusive partner McDonald's doesn't receive the same improvement and refinement. Instead, it receives a bunch of new error codes and terrible user experience, which always leads to call the guy. One franchise owner I talked to said, all roads lead to call the technician. Like this product is designed to get you to call the technician. At this moment, as I'm talking to you, 15% of all ice cream machines in the US are down. The standard for most industrial products is that you have less than a 1% failure rate for your product. In fact, the real target for mass industrial products is 99.99966% of the time your product is working. That means 3.14 errors for every 1 million opportunities. What you're seeing here with 15% is a dismal failure, and is the product of no pressure or no incentive to improve, and in fact a perverse incentive to keep it shitty. The last chapter of this story is the one that is still developing today, and it has to do with the email I got a few months ago from somebody who's deep in the middle of this. I'm going to lay out some facts here. I'm going to let the news play out over coming weeks and months to see how this happens, but here's what's going on. The guy who reached out to me originally was someone named Jeremy. He's a tech entrepreneur. He invented a product that could basically fix this problem of like terrible feedback to the user of these ice cream machines. It's this device that you plug into your ice cream maker, and it connects with your phone, and it gives you solid reporting on all the things happening in your ice cream machine, something that this does not do. And it identifies like actionable things that you can do to train your employees to make sure that that problem doesn't happen again. Basically, it avoids this happening in the first place and avoids you needing to call the guy all the time. As soon as Jeremy launched this product, it was a smashing hit with franchise owners. They started selling hundreds of these things to franchises all across the country.
People magazine reports the chain has partnered with Kitch, a company that created technology to help employees manage the machines and reduce downtime.
Franchise owners I talked to said that instead of getting these vague error codes, now they actually get like solid reporting on what is happening inside this machine, and they can like train their employees to help avoid this. Now let me just caveat for a second. Jeremy and his company Kitch obviously have a big financial stake in this story. I'm aware that he reached out to me and gave me some of this data, and that there's a big conflict of interest in terms of like neutral journalism and my informant conference where all the franchise owners got together late last year to have a conference to talk about McDonald's things. It sounds like a riveting conference. The head of this organization of franchise owners gets up and says,
"Now this is no silver bullet, but it's my belief that the information it provides increases awareness and results in faster reaction times when a problem does occur. Now to be clear, this is not a McDonald's approved piece of equipment."
I mean, he sort of like endorsed it. He was like, this is a sweet product. It's actually helping us out. Soon after this endorsement, McDonald's sends an email to all of its franchises that says that they've determined that kitsch is actually super dangerous. It may cause serious safety risks, and they recommend that the franchise owners stop using it, saying that they will void their warranty if they do. Wait, what? So you have this device that is clearly solving a major problem, and instead of being like, whoa, tell us more about this, let's see if we can get this like approved and put it into more shops, they blacklist it, and they scare away a bunch of their franchisees from using it. I reached out to McDonald's directly to ask them point blank, like, WTF, why are you blacklisting a product that has the potential to solve this problem that you get made fun of all the time on the internet for? They came back to me with some boilerplate PR language about being committed to their customers and all this stuff, being able to buy sweet treats and all this. And then this little nugget at the end where they say that McDonald's is testing a connectivity solution with an approved McDonald's supplier. In other words, McDonald's is working on a product that does exactly the same thing. Oh, and the company that they're using to do this is called Powerhouse Dynamics, who is, wait for it, owned by the same company that owns Taylor. They're under the same parent company, Taylor and Powerhouse Dynamics. They're keeping it in the family. Oh, and this device, the new one that they're testing out, doesn't give the full picture to the user. It continues to block them out of certain aspects of the machine that could be useful in diagnosing why the machine is always broken. The theme here is the same. It has been the whole time. Two old companies that have been working together for a long time, looking out for each other, and keeping control over data so that they can save their own necks from being disrupted by new tech. That is like this story like that is as old as time, and it is happening right here in a potentially collusionary way. Again, is this a deep conspiracy? Is there like secret backdoor deals going on? No, this is actually horribly predictable. What this is old companies who are afraid of being disrupted by smarter, better products, doing whatever they can to hold on to their share of the market. This new connectivity product that McDonald's mentioned to me basically does the same thing as kitsch. But this new device doesn't actually give the full picture. It still blocks the user out of those things that have been behind the technician's secret menu. The things that the user manual itself says are critical. It's the same old story of keeping tight control over what data and experience the user has so that they can continue to maintain their exclusive relationship with...
Мне самому уже неинтересно, ты знаешь. Какие-то опять этюды на телефоне. Ну нет. Да, это гамма. Проиграл уже. Не надо, это уже не YouTube, делай из разного.